Lauren, as we were just covering some of your material here, how will the IRA impact BOEM's authority to offer new offshore wind leases?
Oh, good question. So we touched on that a little bit earlier. I think it really depends on what oil and gas 5-year program goes forward. And like Peter was saying, the lease auctions that go forward. If the oil and gas program is pushed forward with more sales, then we shouldn't see a huge impact for offshore wind. However, if we see a decrease in oil and gas leasing, that's going to heavily impact how many offshore wind leases can go forward for the next 10 years. So I believe the IRA was limited to the next 10 years after the effective date.
Excellent. Peter, Annie, do you have thoughts on that, either of you?
Yeah, just a little bit. I covered the current issue of whether the leases in California could go forward, because we will have the sale 257 go forward. But this is an ongoing issue. BOEM and on the onshore issues, BLM, are struggling with the timing of these, because they're not a question of how much is offered in the previous calendar year. It's 12 months rolling date before the issuance of the, in this case, offshore wind leases. So you have to show that within the last 12 months, you've offered 60 million acres. So you can well imagine that if the offer of, say, 80 million acres takes place in December 2022, that's good for the next year, but it's not good after that. And so if you are in May of 24, you may not be able to get a lease unless something's been done in the last 12 months that was 60 million acres. So these are issues that need to be worked out, and the coordination between those who within BOEM are doing the offshore gas leases sales and those who are doing offshore wind has to be, it's a very delicate dance. So I'm not sure whether it's ballet or hip hop, but it's going to be a delicate dance.
Excellent. Annie, any thoughts before we move on?
Well, Peter, am I right that that's 600 million acres over 10 years?
Well, yes.
It's a lot of acres.
Well, to the extent that they offer them for sale and there aren't leases given because no one bid, they can reoffer those same acres.
There you go. So there could be overlap of the geographic location of those 60 million acres on a year-over-year basis.
Right, and there's some opportunity for gaming gaming it, obviously, but there's also just changes in technology that result in more or less interest over time.
Excellent. I want to move on to another question for all of our speakers here. And again, in just the time we have remaining, to see if we could give thoughts on this. One of our attendees wanting to know, okay, so what about a change of administration? How is that going to impact the U.S. offshore wind development growth? Thoughts on that? Annie, do you want to start with that one?
Well, I love the famous line, elections have consequences. I do think that, having the Democrats in control of the Senate and the deal that was made between Manchin and Schumer made a huge push for green energy in the United States. And so I do think, who's in power has enormous implications for whether we're going to see actual changes in the carbonization of our grid. And, this was obviously a compromise, the IRA, connecting the offshore wind leases with offshore oil and gas leases is sort of a frustrating for those of us who are in renewable energy. But I understand all of the above and mentality, and that's politics and that's compromise.
Excellent. Thoughts from you, Peter?
Well, during the Trump administration, we saw a halt in offshore wind leases in New York when the president was not happy with New York's opposition to a natural gas pipeline in New York. And so those leases were halted for a while. So those kinds of things can happen. I'm an eternal optimist and believe that under any administration, offshore wind is a technology and a business that will be recognized and will advance.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Lauren, thoughts from you?
I just will add that I think it's important to remember that the states also have ambitious offshore wind goals now too. So even if the federal government were to stall, for lack of a better word, the states will be helping push it along to try to meet their own goals.